Chip startup SambaNova has completed the first close of its Series F, raising $1 billion at an $11 billion valuation. The company is among a growing group of startups aiming to challenge NVIDIA and supply AI infrastructure specifically for inference. SambaNova CEO Rodrigo Liang is with us with more. Let's start with the basics of what that capital allows you to do in scaling the platform.
Well, look, it's the inference market has broken everything open, and that's where we focus. And so we're seeing this incredible demand in the market for inferencing at really high token speeds. And so the capital allows us to really accelerate the supply chain, accelerate the build out of these racks, and deliver the racks to a broad range of customers.
Inference is split in two phases, pre-fill, decode. And so, to the audience that might not be familiar with that, take the opportunity, Rodrigo, to explain why a specific platform for the decode phase is important, why it works better for inference.
Yeah, I mean, the analogy I make is like, if you're at the Disneyland ride and you have the rides that are kind of really busy and you want to organize the queues ahead of time. And so in pre-fill, what you're really able to do is organize this traffic to maximize what you need to do when the decode phase of inference shows up. And so what you're seeing is that if we use NVIDIA for the pre-fill portion, right, and then replace that NVIDIA rack using SambaNova for decode, you're getting 2 to 3x throughput advantage on the same infrastructure and the same cost. So driving your output to a much higher level without increasing your investment.
So this is the bit that I find fascinating. SM40, SM50, your proprietary tech, the way that you put it out there, 5 to 10 times faster on inference on the decode phase when compared to NVIDIA GPU. But the reality is it is working alongside other accelerators on the platform, right? Explain that.
Yeah, that's right. So if you look at a SambaNova SM40, it was originally designed for the enterprise for on-prem use cases. So you could do the pre-fill, you could do the decode altogether, and you can actually run these models at a really, really high performance, very low power, 10 kilowatts per rack versus 100 kilowatts on a typical GPU rack. Now, if you actually go at scale and you look at these cloud players, these very large frontier labs, what they're doing is actually running lots and lots of traffic behind it. And so now what you want to do is actually take NVIDIA chips, which are very good for certain things, marry them together with SambaNova racks, which are made for very fast decode of inference, and then getting the maximum throughput and maximizing the output of whatever power you're able to secure for the data center.
Let's give some size and scope, please, Rodrigo. How many customers are actually running production workloads on SM40 or SM50 today? And I guess you'd measure that as tokens processed per day, or what would the unit of measurement be?
Well, today, look, SambaNova, we're in the business of moving racks. Our customers are service providers, cloud players, model builders. So those are our customers. We don't sell tokens, we really sell racks. And so if I look at kind of what we did with SambaNova, we're already in the dozens of customers, and we'll touch triple digit by the end of the year. And so we're in the model of deploying racks, which then those customers of ours will turn into token services that allow them to offer these premium tokens, very fast tokens on the largest models out to their developers, out to their users.
JP Morgan's the big one, right? It's a really interesting case study. Explain what it is that JP Morgan's able to achieve with your technology.
Yeah, really excited about this announcement. JP Morgan has selected SambaNova to be the inference provider for the bank. And what you're seeing now is where the attention continues to be on the frontier labs, on the hyperscale clouds, one big segment of inference or AI is waking up, and that's enterprise. The enterprise, there's frankly, JP Morgan has always been the leader in actually using technology to drive the business. And so they're using SambaNova because they can bring this technology onto their premise, private data put into these racks, secure data completely within their own firewalls, and you can do all of this highly regulated business in production within the fine confines of a nicely protected environment.
Rodrigo, I think you'd admit, right, there are many inference-specific platforms out there in the world at different stages in their life cycles. But I want to go back to this idea that the SM40 and SM50 work in conjunction with with other accelerators, but in particular the GPU. The GPU architecture relies on high bandwidth memory. Cerebras, for example, has talked a lot about its use of SRAM, so it's not affected by the bottleneck that is HBM. How does that play out for SambaNova?
Well, SambaNova, it's a data flow architecture which is very SRAM based, and so what it does, it actually is able to actually take all the benefits of the SRAM, the very, very fast SRAM, and generate the speeds. One of the benefits of having HBM is now you're able to run the big models, where the traditional SRAM based architectures that are don't have HBM, they can't run the trillion parameter models. They have to quantize those models. And so we want to tackle the hard models, and so we use HBM. But here's what we did on SambaNova. We used HBM that was N-1 technology, HBM that was already in mature production, which allows us to actually generate significantly more supply versus competing with NVIDIA on, say, the latest and greatest, newest HBM. And so we're delivering high performance using mature HBM technology where the supply is significantly better.
Let's end by going back to the round. Very interesting who's now on the cap table or increased position. What happens next for you guys? Like capital intensive on the R&D side, on the scaling side? How are you going to manage your finances going forward?
Look, I mean, this is something that, we're heading to scale, and you see the investors coming in, from General Atlantic to Capital Group, T. Rowe Price, Columbia Seligman, just incredible investors that have great track record going to the public markets. And so we're actively driving the scale. We see incredible ramp up on our demand. And so we're just focused on delivery and driving the revenue to the point that allows us the option of actually going into the public markets.